वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देवा सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaste. The entire team of Paramavedanta is very happy to welcome you all to this Gita Jayanti celebration. Bhagavad Gita was taught to Arjuna by Lord Sri Krishna on Margashira Shukla Ekadashi day. Such a great knowledge, which is the essence of Upanishad and comprising of political, philosophical, psychological, practical, and spiritual values, can never be found elsewhere. It is said, no matter how educated and learned you are, you tend to live your life in darkness till the time you get enlightened with the spiritual, supreme, and divine knowledge of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. We Indians are famous for celebrations. We are known to spiritualize our festivals. We celebrate Ugadi, the New Year day, by taking jaggery and neem flower, both of which represent happiness and sorrow that come across, and a lesson to take them with equanimity. We celebrate Diwali with lamps and lights, indicating removal of darkness of sorrow, darkness of Ajnana with the light of Jnana. In the same way, we celebrate Sankranti by worshipping bulls and the crops that we grow, treating them as God. In the same way, we do celebrate Gandhi Jayanti by recollecting his noble thoughts, the values he lived for. Then, how do we celebrate that auspicious day on which Bhagavad Gita was taught by Bhagavan himself? Very simple. By remembering him, by chanting his name, and by recollecting what he taught Arjuna in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. This year, Gita Jayanti is on Friday, the 25th of December 2020. From today onwards, we plan to study selected shlokas from Gita and study every Monday and Wednesday for 7 weeks. We will also have chanting selected shlokas in every class. Apart from this, we will have quiz on Gita in every class. Come on, friends, let's get on with the celebration. To begin with, Srimati Indumati will chant Gita Dhyana shlokas composed by Sri Madhusudana Saraswati. Our teaching team, led by Dr. Timma Pegde sir, will take over after the Dhyana shloka. Indu madam, can you please?
Yes. Om पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्धदामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्स सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनीं सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैर्रणनदी कैवर्तककेशवः पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटं नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितं लोके सज्जनषट्पदैरहरहः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयाद् भारत पंकजं कलिमलः प्रध्वंसि न श्रेयसे मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्र रुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः। ॐ हरिः ॐ।
Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Welcome to our Gita Jayanti celebrations. There are various ways to celebrate Gita Jayanti. And for students of the Gita, one way to celebrate is to study the Bhagavad Gita or to revise the important verses of the Bhagavad Gita. We have planned 14 sessions over 7 weeks every Monday and Wednesday, starting at 6:45 p.m. Indian Standard Time. What is the greatness of the Bhagavad Gita? The Vedas are voluminous. Lord Krishna has condensed the entire Bhagavad Gita into 700 verses. And Adi Shankara, in his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, has said, a study of the Gita is equivalent to studying all of the Vedas. In one of the Gita Dhyana shlokas, the verses go like this: Sarvopanishado ghavo dogda gopala nandanaha partho vatsa sudhir bhokta dugdam gitamritam mahat. Which means, Shri Krishna has milked from the cow of the Upanishads and has extracted the best of the Upanishads for us in the form of the Bhagavad Gita. Adi Shankara in the Bhaja Govindam song had mentioned one line which says, Bhagavad Gita kinchidadita. If you are able to study the Bhagavad Gita, you are no longer in contention with Yamadharmaraja. Yamadharmaraja has no more business with you because you now have a clear understanding that I have come to understand something within me which is deathless. The Bhagavad Gita deals with several topics, but like Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, about ethical values. Adi Shankara, again in his commentary, has pointed out that the central theme or tatparyam of the Bhagavad Gita is self-knowledge as a means of liberation. And the key word here is Tat Tvam Asi. You are already that which you can possibly be. And that we will be able to study through the course of the Bhagavad Gita. This one particular slide condenses the various important topics. So the Gita has been very beautifully classified in groups of 6 chapters each. There are 18 chapters. The first 6 chapters are called the Prathama Shatkam. The next 6 chapters are the Madhyama Shatkam. And the final 6 chapters are the Charama or the Antima Shatkam. As I already said, the central theme of the Bhagavad Gita is Tat Tvam Asi. The first 6 chapters talk about our true nature, which is called Tvam Padartha, which is the same as the nature of God, which is Tat Padartha. And the last 6 chapters bring about an equation that the essential nature of the individual us is the same as the essential nature of the divine. The Bhagavad Gita gives a sequential sadhanas or spiritual exercise. The first 6 topics talk about Karma Yoga as a spiritual exercise to be able to purify the mind, to be able to understand the spiritual wisdom. The mind is better controlled through Upasana Yoga and through Bhakti. That comes in the next 6 chapters. And the last 6 chapters bring about the lofty spiritual wisdom, the essence of the Upanishads in the form of the Jnana Yoga. The first 6 chapters also speak about our effort. Unless we make our prayatna, our effort, it is not going to be a success. The next 6 chapters say our effort alone will not do. We need to be able to access grace. And finally, the last 6 chapters say that you may be having all the spiritual wisdom, but if you are not a person of values, there will be a disparity between who you are and who you profess to be. So unless we are able to internalize values in your life, spiritual wisdom is not going to become an integral part of us. With this background, let us see why is the Bhagavad Gita, of all the scriptural works, considered to be so delightful. Why is it so popular? There is a story, it is said, when Vyasacharya had his inspiration to write the Mahabharata, he wanted a scribe to write for him. And he requested Lord Ganesha if he would agree to be his scribe. Lord Ganesha said, I will do it, but I have one condition. The condition is that you have to dictate to me continually. If you stop dictating, I will stop writing. So Vyasacharya said, okay, I have a condition for you. And the condition is you are no ordinary stenographer to just take down a dictation. Each line, each verse that I speak, I want you to be able to assimilate. I want you to be able to understand. And the story goes that whenever Vyasacharya has a certain thought block, he is able to give a certain googly verse, which makes it very difficult for Lord Ganesha to understand. And that gives him enough time for him to get his inspiration. That is why most of the verses of the Gita are so simple, so musical compared to the rest of the Shastras. That is why Bhagavad Gita is so popular. However, once in a while, you have these difficult verses, which Swamiji calls them as the googly verses. With this background, our effort is to take certain selected verses from the Bhagavad Gita and to be able to see what is the meaning of that particular verse for me. We will begin with Chaitana. Chaitana, the verse for you is 2nd chapter, verse 11. Please go ahead.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Have you noticed how miserable people always justify how miserable they are? And that is what Arjuna was going through till now. He went through various stages of sorrow before he realizes that he needs help to get out of it. That's when he turned towards Krishna and surrendered to him. And finally, Krishna knows that Arjuna is ready to listen to him and his teaching. So from the 11th verse of the 2nd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the real teaching from Krishna begins. So what does Krishna say? He says, Asochan anvasochastvam prajnam vadamscha bhashase gatasu na gatasumcha na anusochanti panditaha. So this entire Gita Shastra is condensed in this verse. That is why Adi Shankara begins his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita from this seed verse. So what is the essence that Krishna wants to convey here? He's saying that the self-ignorance is the cause of all human problems and sufferings, and that self-knowledge is the only way out of it. So he begins by saying, Asochan anvasochas. So what is he saying? Arjuna, you are grieving for those people who do not deserve to deserve any grief. All these people on the Kaurava side, even though if they are in your relatives and your friends, they are on the side of adharma. So don't speak like a wise person. Prajnam vadamscha bhashase. You are not a wise person, Arjuna, if you fall into this justification trap. Then in the second line, he says, Na anusochanti panditaha. Who are these panditas? Panditas are the wise people. Wise people do not grieve, Krishna says. And why? Because they are ones with self-knowledge. And so Krishna is saying, those, essentially what he's saying is, those who grieve are ignorant about their real self. Now, what is this grief regarding what? So Krishna is saying, Gatasun agatasun cha. Wise people do not grieve for the living ones, nor do they grieve for the dead ones. They do not grieve for what is past, or what is going to come in the future, nor for that matter, what is in present. So he repeatedly says, do not grieve. But why are we miserable? So he says, Krishna says here, we are miserable only because of our ahankara and mamakara, of I and my notion. Grief is because of attachment and not love. Attachment leads to bondage and psychological dependence, whereas love signifies freedom and selflessness. So we need to know the difference between the two. So what is Krishna's message to all of us here? He's saying, Arjuna, if we are grieving for the loss or the very thought of loss, then we have not understood the message given in the Gita. So it's like an actor who dons several roles and plays all of them to the best of his abilities. But at the end of the drama, he does not identify with any of those roles. He knows that he is not the role he has played. So life has given us so many roles to play, like a mother, son, daughter, father, boss, employee. So play the role to the best of your ability. But then we tend to say that my suffering is real. So we have to ask ourselves that question, who is suffering? If you go to see, it is the mother in you, the daughter in you, the wife in you is suffering, not the real I. Now take another example. After a good night's sleep, when you get up, somebody asks you, how did you sleep? We say, I slept well. Now, who's this I? I did not say that the mother in me slept well, the daughter in me slept well. So get to know this real I who has slept well. And Krishna here helps you to understand that. So what is Krishna's message for us? From this 11th verse onwards, he tells us that real I am not the person who I think I am. And I have to make an inquiry into who am I to get out of this problem of grief and sorrow. So the rest of the Gita from here on gives us an answer to who am I? Hari Om, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chaitanya, for this opening verse, the opening teaching verse that begins in the second chapter, 11th verse, where Krishna repeatedly uses this word, do not grieve, do not grieve. I first heard the explanation of this verse from Swami Dayananda Saraswati. And Swami Dayananda says, if there are few words which he will say are some of the most important teaching verses in the Bhagavad Gita, it is this 11th verse in the second chapter. Here we have to know what is this justification trap. Whenever a person thinks he is wise, that is what Krishna says, we are very good in logically reasoning why my suffering is justified. Many people try to say, you do not know the kind of suffering that I'm going through. And we very logically give reasons why we continue to suffer. Krishna says, this is where we are using your intelligence wrongly. Krishna's central message is, if you really know who you are, then there is absolutely no suffering. Life should be like when you go to a movie and you see a very serious scene, and if you have paid for the movie and you are crying in that movie, you have missed the whole entertainment. God has given us the gift of this life. We are here to understand who we are, play our roles 100%, and not get too involved in our roles that we are able to miss the whole message of this Gita. Swami Anubhavananda ji has one message: irrespective of whatever life situation, we need to be able to see how we are not going to allow it to be make us miserable. He says, miseries come and go, but to be miserable or not is your choice. The next verse that I have chosen to speak is a very central and a very meaningful verse for me. And I would like to share this particular verse from the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which goes like this. Matra sparsha su kaunteya sita ushna sukha dukkadaya agama pahino anityaha tam titikshasva bharata. Meaning here is, O Kaunteya, here is a teaching. Whenever Krishna refers to Arjuna, it means it is referring to each one of us, because we are the students of the Bhagavad Gita. Matra sparsha. Whenever the sense organs interact with the sense objects, sita dukkha adaya, hot, cold, pleasure and pain naturally happens. The important thing is they come, they go, they come, they go. And the key word here is anityaha. They are not permanent. And because they are not permanent, remember, even every suffering will pass. But until then, you have to be mentally strong. Another key word here is titikshasva. I want you to be mentally strong. This verse comes immediately after another verse which has spoken about Atma as Nitya. If Atma is Nitya, or the real me is Nitya or eternal, everything else that I can see and experience, including my body and mind, is Anityaha. Anityaha means anything anatma is impermanent. And what happens to anything impermanent? They come, they go. Nothing is permanent. One central message is we have to learn to accept the impermanent nature of anatma. That is the nature. And if I'm not able to accept the impermanent nature of my body, of my life, of all the surroundings around me, then this resistance is that which causes sorrow. And therefore, what we need to train ourselves, and one great spiritual discipline is called titiksha, is to be mentally strong. And always remember, sufferings, difficulties, they come and they go, and we need to be able to have that mental strength. So if I would like to leave you with one key word, is the word yes. When we wake up in the morning, let this be our prayer. Matra sparsha sukaunteya Sita Ushna Sukha Dukkadaya Agama Pahino Nityaha Tam Titikshasva Bharata. How my day is going to be. I know I will have various ups and downs. I will have various unexpected situations. That is the nature of anatma. I need to be able to be mentally strong. I need to be able to accept them as they are. And there is one beautiful word, is whatever I'm going to be subject to according to my prarabdha, according to the will of the Lord, I'm going to cheerfully accept it and gracefully accept it. Dr. Komal, you have another very beautiful verse to explain. Over to you, Dr. Komal.
Thank you, sir. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Lord Krishna is talking about the nature of the self, Atma Swarupam, and how it is different from Anatma, the body-mind complex. First, he points out that Atma is Nitya, means Atma is eternal. Even when body is born and gone, Atma continues to exist. Next, he pointed out that Atma Satya, Atma is the reality, is the reality. It exists independently. Everything else depends upon Atma for existence. Then next, he pointed out that Atma Sarvagata, which means Atma is all-pervading, like space. Next, Atma Aprameya. It is never an object of experience. It is ever the experiencer of everything. A camera can take picture of anything except itself. We cannot see the camera in any of its photos. So, Aprameya. Then Krishna says, Atma is Akarta and Abhokta. It is neither a doer of any action, nor it reaps the result of any action. Then, finally, Krishna points out in this verse 20 that Atma is Nirvikara, free from all modifications like birth, growth, change, decay, and death. Coming to the verse, Na jayate mriyate va kadachin. Nayam bhutva bhavita vana bhuyaha ajo nitya shashvatoyam purano na hanyate hanyamani sharire. Another highly philosophical verse, and it is derived from Upanishads, the Kathopanishads. The essence of this verse is that Atma is free from all modifications or changes. Nirvikara Atma. We see that all the objects we experience in this world undergo change over time, which is especially obvious in living beings. Here, Sri Krishna says that Atma is free from all these modifications. It is not born, it does not grow, decay, or die. That is the essence of this verse. Na jayate, Atma is never born. Na mriyate, Atma does not die. Kadachit, at any time. Why do you say so? That's because na bhutva, it never comes to existence, never born. Na abhavita. It never stops to exist in future, and therefore it is aja, birthless, nitya, deathless, shashvata, free from decay, does not get old. Purana, it does not grow. Na hanyate hanyamani sharire. Atma does not get afflicted by any disease. It does not go out of shape. And therefore, Atma is free from viparinama also, free from change. Therefore, Atma is nirvikara. Next slide. Existence in seed form, birth, growth, change, decay, and death. These are the modifications we see in the body. Birth and death generally appear very distant to us. We tend to keep these dark phases of life away from our memory and thoughts. What we generally appreciate is growth, aging, and ill health, adding weight, graying hair, losing hair, wrinkles on skin, joint pains, back pain, diabetes, the list goes on and on. What Sri Krishna points out here is to remember and identify with our true self. So, next time you see yourself in the mirror, remember this: I am that changeless Atma and not the ever changing body. Sharira, the body, undergoes change. Add kilograms to its weight, grows vertically and horizontally. It ages, hair grays, skin wrinkles, joints start creaking and paining, other illnesses troubles. But remember the key terms here. Shashvata does not decay. Purano does not grow. Na hanyate hanyamane sharire does not get modified when the body gets afflicted by disease. That changing image in the mirror, it belongs to the Sharira. And that changeless essence of yourself is the Nirvikara Atma. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Komal, for giving us a very nice explanation about the real nature of Atma. Whenever we speak about Atma, we should remember this Atma is none other than my real self. Initially, when we talk, we identify ourselves with the body. And later on, we say, I have an Atma. But more and more as we evolve with the spiritual understanding, our language will be, I am the Atma with an incidental body. And whatever Dr. Komal described in this beautiful verse, na jayati, the real me has no birth. The real me has no death. Imagine that when there is no birth, no death, that I am there for all time. I am Nityaha. I have been there from the very beginning if there is a beginning, and I will be there till the very end if there is an end. Sashvataha. And even when this body dies, even when this body falls, I do not die. Can you see this has been so much of our experience? Have you seen a photograph of yourself when you are very little? And many people have series of photographs, over the years. And if you see each of them, one thing is very clear. I have lived in so many bodies. I have dropped all these bodies, but I, the indweller in all these bodies, is the same. Bodies come and go in my own life. And this helps us to understanding a very central message of Vedanta, that I am someone other than the body. As Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi says, Naham Deham. Dr. Sundar, you have another beautiful verse to explain. Please go ahead.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Vyavasayatmika buddhihi ekeha kurunandana bahushakahyanantascha buddhayo avyavasayinam. This verse is one of the earliest Karma Yoga verses in the Gita. In this verse, Lord Krishna is trying to compare and contrast the approach in spiritual life taken by a karma yogi as against a person who is not a karma yogi, who is not aware of the approach to be taken in their spiritual lives. Vyavasayatmika buddhihi is a well-cultivated mind which belongs to a karma yogi who is clear about the priorities of his life, who is clear about what is the means and what is the end. Such a singular, focused approach, Lord Krishna says, is eka iha. Such an approach is only one in the spiritual world. O Arjuna. In contrast to that, as we see in the second line, buddhi or notions of avyavasainam, those who don't have a cultivated mind, a well-cultivated mind, who are not karma yogis, whom Swamiji addresses as karmis. So their approach, in contrast, is not focused, not singular. It is bahushaka. It is multiple branched, meaning to say they may take to one sadhana at one time. They may quickly shift over to another sadhana at another time. Anantascha, they are innumerable. They are not focused. They are not sequential. Now, the key word here is vyavasayatmika, as we see in the next slide. Although Lord Krishna does not explain what is this singular and focused approach, what are the priorities, what are the means or end, through contextual understanding and through Swamiji's explanation, Vyavasayatmika Buddhi means this. All of us are seekers on this spiritual path. So what we are seeking is variously termed as Jivan Mukti or Moksha. But in practical terms, it means a state of mind with such emotional stability, a mental immunity, that I don't waver irrespective of whether the circumstances externally surrounding me are favorable or unfavorable. Putting it in another words, this means that I attain to my fullest potential because I have a favorable mind which backs me through this. So through the Guru Shastra Sampradaya, we come to know that this state of mind is possible only through Atma Jnanam. Then I come to know that Atma Jnanam is possible only through the sadhana of Jnana Yoga. I am then told that Jnana Yoga is not easy unless I have a purified mind. So I strive hard to develop Jnana Yogyata as a prerequisite for Jnana Yoga through the sadhana of Karma and Upasana Yoga, which gives me purity of mind, termed variously as Chitta Shuddhi, Sadhana Chatustaya Sampatti, and so on. To put in other words, as we see in the next slide, the steps of spiritual journey comprise of two. In the first step, I do karma, upasana, obtain chitta shuddhi or purity of mind, which is the prerequisite. Then I take the journey of Jnana Yoga, where I know about my true nature. Then through Nididhyasanam, I abide in this true nature and get inner freedom. So this can be simply put through three words. Vyavasayatmika Buddhi is to do, then to know about my true self, abide in it and be free. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Sundar, for giving a very clear explanation of what is this Vyavasayatmika Buddhi for a spiritual speaker. A spiritual seeker should have a very clear path about what is the means and what is the goal. If this is not there, Sri Krishna says, Avyavasayinam. Such a person who is not very clear, unfortunately, maybe he does not have the guidance of an acharya or a teacher how to go about. Our scriptures are so vast and so varied. And therefore, a person who enters into the spiritual field sometimes becomes so enthusiastic, Swamiji used the word, they get spirituated. And then you can get attracted into anything and everything. And finally, you miss the way. So once you know what is my means and what is the goal, the example giving is when you have a long journey, the background as nicely described by Dr. Sundar is, I should know what is my destination. To know what is my destination, what is the sadhana I need to do first, that I need to get karma yoga to be able to take off certain impurities in the mind. I need to work on upasana yoga so that I'm able to focus my mind on whatever I need, and then to be able to be ready for my teacher for the words of spiritual knowledge. If the means and the goal are clear, otherwise there are so many people who can get sidetracked into so many other sadhanas and practices and struggle along the spiritual path. The next verse for today for a reflection will be by Dr. Ravi Shankar. Dr. Ravi Shankar, please.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. To a question raised by Arjuna about how a Sthita Prajna, who is a man of a stable mind, how does he speak, how does he sit, and how does he walk? Bhagwan Shri Krishna answers in this verse 55 of the Sankhya Yoga. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atmanevatmana tushtaha sthita prajnastadochyate. Broadly, it means one who thoroughly dismisses all the cravings of the mind and is satisfied in the self through the joy of the self is called a stable mind. We all need a role model for our spiritual sadhana so that we can look upon him, follow the path, and then this is also to evaluate how far we have walked and how far more we have to go. This is known as sadhanani. Then we have to know the nature of that role model, which is the lakshanani. Both of these are explained in this verse. Karma yoga, which is a dharmic lifestyle for chitta shuddhi, gives jnana yogyata. This allows us to move to jnana yoga. And this sadhana from karma yoga to jnana yoga is essential for us, and there is no choice. Jnana yoga includes shravana, which is study of scriptures over a length of time under a competent guru. It also includes manana, which is to remove all the doubts and to develop a firm conviction. Up to this level, it is attaining jnana or prajna. The next step is nididhyasana. It is conversion of the intellectual knowledge to an emotional strength, which is a transformational change. And this is from prajna to sthita prajna. The emotional quotient gives strength against the vagaries of samsara. The lakshana of such a person is he abides in his true self. He revels with contentment. He is happy with himself. He is self-sufficient. He does not depend upon any external factors for happiness. He is light-minded. And this is the key phrase of this verse, Atmaneva Atmana Tushtaha. We all have desires, and those desires arise in the mind. They may be of the nature of Ashuddha Kama. The natural consequence of completeness or Purnatvam is to renunciate all these Ashuddha Kamas in such a person who is a Sthita Prajna. And that is what is explained by the phrase Prajahati Sarvan Kaman. There is no world dependence for this person who has a sense of completeness. The kama or desire arises in the mind, and that is the meaning of the word manogatan. They are dropped in such a person who is a sthita prajna. They are not suppressed. The legitimate, non-binding desires as per dharma in moderation is of course acceptable. So this verse highlights Atmaneva Atmatushtaha. It also tells us the path or the sadhana for us to follow and explains the nature of a person who is a Sthita Prajna. Hari Om, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi Shankar, for a nice explanation of a very important verse. To recap again, it was Arjuna's question. What are the qualities of a person who has anchored or who is deep into spiritual wisdom? And the key word that Krishna uses is Atmanevatmana Tushtaha. Tushtaha means one who's saturated, one who's full of an understanding of his real nature. Once you understand who you are and you discover the fullness of the Atma Tattva, you realize your limitlessness, your Anantatva, your infinite nature, which also brings about a tremendous sense of Purnatva. I am whole and complete. And for such a person, he may have physical needs, but he is really not dependent on any of them, because right now he is emotionally and intellectually sufficient. And this is what is called Purnatva. He may use any of the things in the world, but he is not dependent upon them. This is the key verse of the entire Sthita Prajna. And if there is one part which I would always like to meditate on, a spiritual student should meditate on this word, Atman evatmana tushtaha. Let me be able to revel in the deeper understanding of who I am. And then you realize that you are already that which you can possibly be. Jyotirmay Karthik will explain the last verse that we have selected for today. Over to you, Jyoti.
Thank you, Doctor. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The steady knowledge Gnana Nishta that has been the topic of Krishna's teaching from the beginning is steadfastness in Brahman or Brahmanishta. Krishna says this state of mind is born out of the thorough understanding of Vedanta. Without Vedanta Gnanam, we cannot accomplish this state of mind. Having described a Sthita Prajna, Krishna says to Arjuna in this last verse 72 of chapter 2. Esha Brahmi Sthiti Partha Nainam Prapya Vimuhyati Sthitva Syamanta Kalepi Brahma Nirvana Mrichati. O Partha, this is called Brahmi Sthiti. Having attained this, one is not deluded. Being established in this, even at the time of death, he attains oneness with Brahman. In this shloka, Krishna glorifies Brahmanishta, saying that even at the end of life, one can attain this. Brahmi Sthitihi is otherwise called Sthita Prajna and also called Jivan Muktihi. It is born out of clear knowledge of who I am, as described in verses 12 to 25 of the same chapter. Once a person attains this state of mind, thereafter there is no falling back into samsara. There are no more conflicts in life as Arjuna had in the battlefield. We must know the difference between Sthita Prajnaha and Sthita Prajna. Sthita Prajnaha is the name of a person, while Sthita Prajna is the condition. Sthita Prajna, Gnana Nishtha, and Brahmi Sthiti all mean abidance in Brahman. Since Krishna used the word Sthiti here, one may question how long the state will last, if indeed it is ever gained. The word state here is used only for want of a better word and does not mean something that will be lost. This Nishtha is knowledge of Brahman, gaining which the person is no more deluded. One's old ignorance does not come back. Notions that were based on ignorance, such as I am a jiva, a mortal, a doer, an enjoyer, such don't return. Knowledge gained is gained for good. Atma is Brahman. When its Swarupa or nature is understood, there is no more jiva. The individual is gone. There are no more false notions about oneself. Until Gnanam comes, conflicts are inevitable. However, conflicts are not there in a realized person. He enjoys a state of mind called Jivan Mukti for as long as he lives in the world or as long as there is Prarabdha. At the time of death, Antakalepi Brahma Nirvana Mrichati. Brahma Nirvana means freedom from Punarjanma. He will attain Videha Mukti or merge into Param Brahma. He is one with the Lord. So the length of Jivan Mukti is not the criterion for Videha Mukti. Even 1 day of Jivan Mukti will give Videha Mukti. One can attain this knowledge at any time, as a youth, a middle-aged person, or even at the fag end of life. Even in the last days of their life, the person can know or attain Brahman, helped by life's experiences. There is a story about King Parikshit that bears this out. A curse was placed on him that he would die in a week. He approached Vyasa's son Shuka, who was a Gnani, and told him that he had only 1 week to live. In response, Shuka just laughed. Why are you laughing? The king asked. I'm going to die in a week. Shuka then explained, you are lucky. You say you're going to die in a week. This means that you know that you're going to be alive for 7 days, whereas I have no such guarantee. Since you are sure you're going to live for 7 days, it's a matter of celebration. My God, you can realize Brahman in that time. 7 days are more than enough time to change one's whole perspective, and sure enough, in 7 days, this king became a Gnani. Thus, even if you're suffering from a terminal disease or are very old, it makes no difference. You can gain moksha. If a person whose memory is gone, whose eyes don't see, whose ears don't hear, can gain this knowledge, all the more possible for one whose body is healthy and whose mind is bright. Thus, with the Jivan Mukti and Videha Mukti, Krishna concludes this Tritapagna topic, which is the final topic of this chapter. Thank you.
Thank you, Jyoti, for a nice explanation of the last verse of the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. The second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is a complete Gita summary in itself, and a study of the second chapter itself can give all that which you need to know. And this is how this chapter concludes. Yesha Brahmi Sthiti Partha Nainam Prapya Vimuhyate, which means once you have a clear understanding of your true nature, and that is what, as nicely told in the story of Parikshit by Jyoti, it may just be a week's time for us to be able to get this knowledge. This knowledge we have, but this knowledge should become a nishta. It should become so clear. Once knowledge becomes a clarity, once it has become, Krishna says something very beautiful. One na vimohyate, there is no more coming back into the state of relativity. It is like the skill of cycling or the skill of swimming. So too, spiritual wisdom is a knack. Now, all of us are in various skilled profession, like in surgery or in music or in painting. One question that is often asked is, can a skill be taught? We certainly know a skill can never be taught. And yet we have people who come to great surgeons and to great artists who just observe them, what they do, and over a period of time, this knack is caught. This knack of being able to internalize the spiritual wisdom happens over a period of time to a person who makes his prayatnam and who is able to download grace. And the beauty is, once this understanding becomes clear, there is no more coming back to samsara. And then the rest of your life is you live as a mukta purusha. You may have all the limitations of this body and mind, but you are free. And it is said, once you drop this body, you become, you experience what is called Videha Mukti. We have each of our sessions, we will have one selected mantra, and there is an exceedingly beautiful mantra which should be our daily mantra as recommended by our Swamiji, and I will request Ullas to explain this mantra for us. Ullas, please.
Hari Om sir, thank you. Until now, all the verses that we have seen that one of the main problem or the most biggest problem is body identification. All the wrong identifications are our problem, and the right identification is the only solution. But it's not completely our fault also that we have been always identifying with this body. All our prayers so far, all our Shantri mantras have always been asking something great for myself, for my family, for my name, fame, etc. And when we say here my, we highly identify with our body there. But this particular mantra comes to our help. It helps us flex our empathy muscle. Now we can expand our identification from just this body to a little larger picture. Let's see what this verse is about. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina. May everyone be happy and prosperous. Now, if we are praying that for everybody, how can we ever harbor any ill thoughts about anybody? Sarve Santu Niramaya. May all be disease free. We have seen in the current times that if I need to have my own welfare, then I better pray for the welfare for everybody, because we are a cog in this entire system. So the system is healthy, we are also healthy. Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu. May I see everything that is auspicious only, something which is spiritually uplifting in the others. They say, whatever I focus on, that get amplifies. So if I focus on all the goodness of others, then it is going to surely rub against me also. Ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet. May no one suffer. There should not be any misery. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. All the Adi Daivik, Adi Bhautik, and Adhyatmik Shantis are requested for. Now, the question that comes to mind is, well, don't I have enough problems of my own that I should go and pray for the entire creation? And this particular prayer is not just asking for the greatness, the goodness of my society or my country. It is asking for survey, which includes everybody, everything, every being, everything in this creation. Why should I do that? Should I not just worry about my own things? Well, that is only going to help boost our ego and increase our identification with this body. We need to change this identification because that is the root cause of all the problems that we have. Next slide, sir. The root cause, as we were talking about, is body identification. Let's understand it with an example. For example, when a mosquito bites my leg, my hand does not think that, well, it has not bitten me, because the identification is with the entire body, not that a hand thinks I'm hand and a leg thinks I'm leg. And similarly, if we expand it to the macro level, then we'll realize that the problem that is happening to someone else, if I consider it my problem also, then I would wish that everyone is happy. Then I would also be happy. And that's how we can improve our identification problem. Now, this seems very difficult to understand, that how can it really happen? Well, there are so many things in our life that we have seen which were initially very difficult to understand. For example, Earth going around the sun, sky being blue, etc. But nevertheless, the fact remains. So we need to patiently just practice that. Now, another thing that comes to mind is, well, how is this all going to work? Just by me sitting in my room and praying for the entire world that everyone be happy. Is that really going to solve the problem? Let's take another example. When we water the roots of a plant, then the water reaches to the entire plant invisibly. We are also interconnected in the same way. It may not be visible to us, but when we are sitting, so next slide, when we are sitting and praying, then that wish, those wishes are also going to reach everybody. So have that faith and let us continue to pray this. And as sir said, that every night this should be our prayer. Sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet, om shanti shanti shanti. It is also very important for the purification of our mind, which will lead us to Jnana Yoga also. Thank you, sir. Hari Om.
Thank you, Ulas, for a nice explanation of a very, very beautiful prayer. There is something which I have heard in the early days of my listening to Swami Paramarthananda, and I found it extremely strange. In one of the spiritual practices, he said, have no special prayers. What do you mean by special prayer? Whenever you go to a place of worship, whenever you go to a place where you think this is a very holy place and whatever I pray for will come true. At that time, what do we normally pray for? We will keep it something very special for myself and for my family. And Swamiji points out that whenever you pray for yourself and for your family, you are enhancing two things. You are enhancing your ahankara and mamakara. And through spiritual evolution, these are the two big obstacles. We cannot grow if ahankara grows, if mamakara grows. And the only way is very difficult and very difficult to believe. Don't make any special prayer for yourself. Don't make any special prayer for your family. Because it is very true that whatever you give importance to in your life, that person, that situation, that object is the cause of all your problems. And therefore, the more importance that you give, and what do we normally give importance to? We give importance to issues regarding ourselves and our family. And one of the ways to work on it is having no special prayers. And if you have no special prayers, then use some Upanishadic mantra, use a Gita verse, or you use this beautiful verse where you're praying for everybody. And remember, everybody includes yourself too. That is the beauty of this prayer, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha. I will conclude today's session with what I call as a story meditation. This is a gift. This is a gift given to by my first guru. He gave it to me as a story. In fact, my first ever meeting with my first spiritual master was a take-home gift that he gave me when I was still in school by Father Ronnie Prabhu. And this comes from an amazing book which I would recommend everybody to read, called The Song of the Bird, where he has collected a lot of tiny little stories and from various sources, from various Puranas, from different religions, but with a very, very profound meaning. And over the years, and as I grew mentally and spiritually, the story has been giving me a lot of dividends, and I would like to share this story with you as something that we need to reflect on. This is a story of any one of us like us, someone who wanted to become very rich, become very famous, become very accomplished. And this man always dreamt and prayed to God that I want to become rich, I want to become rich. And he had a dream. And it was a strange dream. And in that dream, he saw God appear to him. And he says, go to the banks of the river. Tomorrow morning at sunrise, you will see a sadhu sannyas who is meditating. And he will give you something that will make you very rich. So he was very keen to see if his dream is true. And he goes to the banks of a large river nearby. And as predicted, at dawn, there was this sadhu sannyas sitting and meditating. And he goes to him and says, there is something that you are supposed to give me that will make you very rich. The man confessed. He says, I am a sannyasi. I don't have anything. But the man insisted, no, there is something that you can give me that is going to make me very rich. The man again professed that there is nothing that I have. He says, can I check that bag of yours? And when he opened his bag, he found the biggest diamond in the world. He says, what is this? Oh, this, as I was walking down to this place of meditation, I found something glistening. I picked it up. He says, can I take it? Of course you can take it. The man was overjoyed. This diamond made him one of the richest men in the world. But something bothered him. He was not a fool. He inquired on this thought and he felt that the only answer could come back to him. Here was a person who gave away something so priceless. And the question was, who can give something so priceless? And he thought, someone who has something of far greater value. He goes back to the same master and says, what is that which makes you so rich? I want that. And very strangely, the teacher says, you are that. This is what Atman Evatmana Tushtaha, or spiritual wisdom is. The teachers see that we are already that which can possibly be. And through the study of the scriptures, particularly the simple one, the Bhagavad Gita, if thoroughly studied, you will be able to go one day to the teacher and says, thank you, Aham Brahmasmi. I'm able to realize my true nature. Reflect on this story. With that, we conclude. Over to you, Venkatesh Prasad. Thank you very much.
Thank you, friends, for a patient hearing. With this, we have come to the end of today's session. On Wednesday, 11th November, we will come out with some more slokas for study. Until then, let us do Mananam of today's class. Please bring more and more of your friends and relatives to enjoy the nectar extracted from Upanishads. Let's meet on Wednesday evening, same time. Please log in before 6:45 p.m. local time. Let's conclude with Shanti Mantra. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om.